Okay, welcome everybody to one of others of our executive talk called The Future of Sales with Tiffany Bova. So when the world's largest technology companies need guidance on sales innovation and business transformation, they would call Tiffany. She has led large sales divisions for both small and large Fortune 500 companies and considers herself a recovering seller. Tiffany is the worldwide lead for go-to-market and sales training and channel innovation at Gartner. And she was given Gartner's Thought Leadership Award in 2014 for her work on the future of IT sales. Tiffany was named one of the 2014's most powerful and influential women in California by the National Diversity Council, and was also voted top 50 sales and marketing influencers by Top Sales World magazine. She has been featured in Forbes, The Economist, Huffington Post, Harvard Business Review, on the Wall Street Journal, covering future trends in sales strategy and improving execution. Let's give a round of applause for Tiffany.
Thank you. Wow, what an intro. It almost scares me. I feel one of my friends, Guy Kawasaki, always says, get on stage and don't suck. So after that intro, don't suck. Anyway, I so appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you. I really like to put that I am a recovering seller on my bio, because I think in a room full of marketers, it gives you a great flavor for the kind of tone I will take in the presentation. Because I think that the relationship, well, let me, how many of you in the room are marketers? Yikes. How many of you are sellers? Oh, thank goodness. Okay, good. At least we got a balance. So if war breaks out, take your sides and we'll work it out. But the presentation is my attempt to inspire you and challenge you to think a little bit differently about the future of selling. While Gartner is very focused on the tech industry, I think it's applicable across all industries. I spend quite a bit of time with some of the largest organizations in the world with their sales leadership teams in trying to figure out, what does the seller of 2020 look like? What does good look like from a sales organization? And the modern seller is now facing challenges they've never seen before. My last quota-carrying job was about 9 years ago, so I'm almost a little rusty on what it's like to carry a quota, but I feel like I vicariously carry it through all of you. So hopefully this presentation will give you a good indication of where the market is headed. I like to start here. For me, the most disruptive thing in the market today is actually not technology, it's the customer. So while there are many tools on the floor and we're at a HubSpot event, I don't mean it isn't relevant. I just mean that it's not what is disrupting the sales and marketing world. It is really the customer. And because of that, we have to think about the fact that the customer now leads the sales process. So smarter selling is what's important. It isn't the data, it isn't the skills, it isn't the talent, it isn't the commission plan, it isn't the pipeline, it isn't the processes. It's about being smarter in selling and engaging with customers at the moment of truth, which is when you as marketers have your sales force, or you as sales leaders have your sellers in front of a customer. That moment of truth, we can no longer just deliver mediocre experiences. It has to be really special. So how do you do that? I want to start and ground us in reality. If any of you know this story, you'll appreciate it. But I like to say the 80s called and they want their sales strategies back. And I don't mean the 1980s, I mean the 1880s. And you may laugh. The very first winner's circle, the very first outcome-based demonstration, the first industry and verticalized presentation, the first demo room, the first slicks, the first commission plans was invented by John Henry Patterson in 1896. How many of you knew that stat? Shocking. Are you shocked? Don't we all feel like this is something new? It's not. Technology makes it different, but the process in selling of finding a customer's pain, and what he did was he took a cash register and he said, I need to show that theft is a pain for business. So I put an old cash register and the new NCR cash register next to each other. I invited small businesses to my demo center, and my sales reps never talked about the product. They talked about reducing theft and serving customers faster, and there's the outcome and the solution and all the things we think is so unique today. But they were doing it back then, and we like to sort of say he's sort of the father of selling, because his number two guy was Watson, who was fired by him, and then he left and began at IBM. And you'll see that there's a lot of legacy in the IBM selling organizations, and many of those leaders through the early 40s and 50s and 60s that trained down, and you can see a lot of those processes we still see today. And so the trick now is, with the advent of technology, we have these new customer demands, require new skills, new capabilities, new organizational structures, while using and building upon the foundation that was built a long time ago. So when someone sits in front of you and says, "The solution selling is something new, outcome-based selling is something new," I just want you to remember this stat. We are trying to figure out how do we reinvent it and reimagine it with all the power that technology gives us today, as well all the power that it puts in the hands of the customer. So a quick snapshot journey from 1896 to today, very quickly in one slide. We moved from this traditional business to having very static websites, which were really sort of the yellow pages of the web early on. Many lives ago in 1998, 99, 2000, 1 and 2, I was Microsoft's very first shared web hosting company in the world. I was the white label hoster for Verizon's hosting business. I was selling websites back then and banner ads and search engine optimization. I was Constant Contact's beta client. I was a Loqua's beta client. I was early. People still wanted to have lunch with their servers. Do you get that joke? Sort of. Okay, just checking if anybody was there. So cloud is also nothing new. We're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. Utility compute is 30 years old. But what has changed once again is the customer. So as we started to move towards traditional businesses going online and buying a domain name and not just having, a static Gmail account, and they started having mysmallbusiness.com, and then it started moving towards becoming much more mobile and social. Now we've completely crossed this chasm where we're in what we call the digital business era, where we have things, people, and places all connecting. And I like to say that the next sales rep is going to be a thing selling to a thing. Imagine the commission conversation there. They're starting to order themselves, right? I wear a Fitbit. I get on my scale at home. It talks to my refrigerator and locks me out. Orders better food for me. Shows up at the door. Get on the scale. I was good. It unlocks the fridge. All of a sudden, all these things start talking and selling to things. And so sales really has a very different dynamic because of that. So when you think about technology, it's about the customer has different expectations at each of these changes in the market. Gartner has something we call the nexus of forces, which is a combination of cloud, social, mobile, and information. And those are the four things that have really triggered this. Customers are taking control. They have unlimited data. They have mobility, which gives them access to things 24/7. It's very social both online, but social amongst each other. We find ourselves talking about technology and our new tablets and what new applications we're using when we're over at a friend's house, or what computer are you going to buy. All of a sudden, we're having very different social engagements when it comes to technology, more so than we've ever had before, because we're very, very comfortable with it. Once you say the buyer journey has changed and the customer is more educated, there's no way for us to say every single journey to purchase is exactly the same. So while marketing is getting better at understanding what are those journeys, we have to make sure we realize the fact and understand and accept the fact that there is no one journey. Like there is no one customer, and there is no one right sales model or one right marketing model or one right sales skill. It is trying to figure out what are the hot spots that you can invest in. And so there has been lots of conversation about the percentage of buyer journey that already is accomplished before they ever reach out. And while I work at Gartner, it may seem as if I'd be very driven by the data. We were having this conversation a little bit ago. I'm actually not so much driven by the data. And so that percentage is not as relevant to me as much as what the customer has done before they reach out. So I like to say that we all can get into agreement, whether you think it's 50% through the journey, 60, 70, whether you're listening to CEB or others, it doesn't matter. The point is, it isn't the same as it used to be. Whatever percentage makes you comfortable, I'm good with. We just have to figure out how do you now respond differently because the journey is different. What this is saying is that customers have done 68% of their buying process before they reach out, and what they're doing before they reach to providers. So whoever you are providing the service, basically the information they've collected, it isn't about their journey, it's about how much research and information they've gathered before they reach out, which tells you that by the time they reach out to one of your sellers or to yourbrand.com, they already have a tremendous amount of information. Now, it might not be correct, it might not be valid, you might have to now sell against what they have found along the way. But the point is this should be a wake-up call from a marketing perspective that the external content outside of your control is far more important than what you have on your website. Because by the time they hit your site, one, they already have a perspective on you or perception of you, or two, they never make it to your site because of the perception they got before they were identifying which of providers they were going to land on the short list. What happens when a customer is out looking for information? On the left side of this, what it's telling you is the customer is driving decisions based on trust of the information that they're out there looking for. When they prior to them reaching out to whoever the provider is, their external influence information sources has a huge impact on trust. Once they reach out to you, the first introductions to sales and marketing and information from you specifically actually has a less amount of impact on their trust with your brand. So once again, whether it's accurate information or not accurate information, that's why it's so important for you, you have to make sure that those external influencers are driving the right recommendations, information, and enablement and excitement about your brand. I think that no one says it better. One of my friends, Jill Rowley's here, she also has a session going on, and she likes to say that you're not actually out hunting prospects, it's future advocates for your brand. And future advocates for your brand are these external influencers that are creating trust in the market for you. Once they become a customer on the right-hand side, you actually see that now you have the highest ability to generate trust in your brand with your customers, your future advocates, the ones that are out there talking to the next set of potential customers and advocates that you're going to capture. And so the customer experience is what drives trust. So in the first phase, before they reach out to you, it's their external influencers. By the time they become a customer, now you are the one that holds the ability to either through experience, keep the trust or diminish the trust. The challenge here on driving trust through that initial cycle before they actually become a customer is the following. One of my colleagues, Hank Barnes, put this together a little bit ago, and it's really resonated in the market around visually depicting the funnel, which I like to call it funnel vision, because everyone gets stuck on the funnel, and how many are going in and how many are coming out. And the problem with that today is that customers don't actually enter in one place, the same place, and come out the same place at the same rate or the same speed. What this is showing you is that a customer goes through 4 phases. They will explore, they evaluate, they engage, they experience. But I might explore, like I said, go out to my peer network. I'll show you the list of where they go in a second. I go out, I find a short list of names. I want to evaluate those guys. So I evaluate. Gosh, they just weren't delivering me what I thought they were going to deliver me. They bounce back to explore. From explore now, they go, you know what, I'm not going to evaluate again. I'm going to go right to engage. I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call the provider. I've skipped right past evaluation, but I went from here, forward, backward, all the way forward again. And I don't know how many of you in the room are sales managers, but there's no pipeline report I've ever seen that lets a sales rep go backwards. And if any of you have ever been on a pipeline call on a Friday afternoon and heard a sales rep tell you, well, he was 60%, now he's 30%, it's not a good conversation. But that's what the customers are doing. This isn't about how we want to manage, this is how we respond to this customer-driven, continuous, and dynamic process by which the customers are going through in engaging and consuming and purchasing from you. So where do they go? Where do they go when they're looking for information? Well, this tends to be a little slanted to the technology industry. It isn't totally exclusive. It's just a little slanted that way. They'll go to trusted independent sites. Then they start going to influencers, independent third parties, professional associations, communities. Then they hit sales interactions with the provider or one of your partners, somebody you're working with. So they've gone 3 other places before they even put you on the consideration map, or they've entered the funnel, or they've entered something where you actually know they exist, unless somewhere along the line you're collecting digital breadcrumbs on all these places that they're going, collecting those digital breadcrumbs and coming up with what's the story for that particular customer or particular prospect. But if you want to engage them, so now they say, okay, I've gone through my four steps. I now reach out to the provider, the person who's selling me whatever it is I'm buying. Now I want to hear the story of why I think I should further engage. So now you've built enough trust with my third-party network. I trust you enough to reach out and call. I'm ready to engage, or I'm ready to chat with you online, or I'm ready to do something with you. Now this is what they want. They want to see, from a technical demonstration standpoint, here's how I'd qualify that. They want to see how whatever it is that they're buying works in their home, in their business, in their car, whatever it is they're buying it for. They want to know, will it work with what I currently have? So that's what we mean by technical demonstrations. And then we go sales presentations tailored to need. And I love when I'm at events like this, it's like, well, we deliver personalized content. And I can tell by what you've done on our site that I think I should deliver you this content. So we started doing something a few months back where we call it, it's hashtag Friday Fails if you want to follow it. But what we do is we take this personalized content that ends up in our inboxes as Gartner analysts, and I get a lot. And I'll get in mail that says, based on your title, based on what you do, I think we are perfect to help you drive leads. Like, what about my LinkedIn profile would ever tell you that I want to buy leads? Or I'll get one that says, we really want to help you with your sales strategy. I'm like, probably not a good email. And so I'll send it back, teaching moment. I get it, it's probably a canned email. But if you aren't very good online, you're going to be worse, or offline, you're going to be worse online because you're worse at scale. 1 call, 100 calls in a day, slight damage. A 5,000 email blast that's really bad is really damaging, especially if you think about that engagement that happens other places. So you have to make sure that you're tailoring, but don't generalize and tailor. You can't completely nail each person every time, but it's marketing's job and sales' job to make sure that that personalization is actually key to the person who's getting it. And then discussions that are business enabling. How are you going to, is your solution, your product, your service, whatever it may be, going to make my personal or professional life better? That's the story you have to tell. And why you over someone else? It may not be price, right? It might be service, it might be quality. All those kinds of things will drive it. And you have to tell this story, remember, before they ever hit your site, or before they ever hit your call center, or before they ever see one of your sales reps. So here is the reality. So if you just say, you know what, we've identified who we want to go after, we have the messaging correct, we're collecting digital breadcrumbs, we're personalizing those engagements, now we're going to hone in on 3 different kinds of deal types. Customers that come to us. And we've found that of the thousands of people who buy from us, this is the median consistency of what people will actually do. So what this is showing you is in deal 1, the first thing the customer or prospect did is, I'm going to go to a demonstration. Then I'm going to qualify. Then I'm going to go to involve industry experts. Then I'm going to go to quote an RFP. Then I'm going to go to close. The second deal started with qualify and went to quote, went to proof of concept, went to qualify again. Once again, the pipeline is bouncing back and forth. Go to quote and request again. Go to negotiate, and I close. And then you've got the third. The point is they weren't all the same, and for sure they're not linear. Because the way we train our sales reps today is you get a lead, put it in the pipeline system, call them on the phone, follow up, 2 phone calls, followed by 2 emails, followed by a tweet, followed by a LinkedIn connection. Here's the 5 steps you're going to do, and then you're going to do this. And miraculously, the customer goes, okay, I'm going on this road with you. I'm completely walking forward, step, step, step. And this shows you that that's not the case. So what you have to do is, I don't want you solving to 100 different ways. Leave the outliers. Leave the very big, complex sales, long sales cycles, big customers. Leave that aside for a second. Leave the commodity, transactional ones aside for the second. Aim for the middle. Find those 2 or 3 paths that are pretty consistent. Solve to those. If you can improve the performance in the middle of your business and identify the 2 or 3 or 4 that you can handle from a marketing and sales perspective, and you improve that middle activity by 5, 6, 7%, it's huge for you. So instead of trying to boil the ocean and say, I need to go all the way from the outliers that are very complex to very transactional and everywhere in between and be perfect, it's just not going to work. So the challenge for you is to identify what that middle road is for you and really try to move that middle forward. When you try to move the middle forward, you got to think about, how do I move my middle performers, my middle sales reps? I like to define selling in a few ways, but this is the easiest one for me. You've got A sellers, you've got B sellers, you've got C sellers. And I don't mean to classify them or categorize them because of their ability to hit quota. I want you to think about it from a personal, individual perspective. An A seller is someone who is super intuitive, very inclined to understand how to talk to someone at a low level to a C level, can negotiate very transactional to very complex. Very difficult to manage because they don't do their pipeline reports. They're never on time. I'm an A seller. I was a pain. I never did stuff on time, and I was like, you could pick 120%, 10% of quota, or do you want me to do the paperwork? You pick. It doesn't matter to me. Your choice. And they would always pick hit the quota. But I'm also very difficult to train. A B seller is all about training. Make them better. Move that middle. That's where you get process improvement and effectiveness. And sales ops is key, and the tools are key, and the scripts are key, and the case studies are key, because that guy will repeat it over and over and over again. And that is a numbers game, and they get better and better and better. And a C seller is somebody who is either moving to B, had a little problem, or maybe moving out of the organization. So how many of you play golf? Okay, so I'll use this example. Tiger Woods, Michelle Wie, A golfers. Born that way. I'm working on a blog right now, which is really the difference between Tiger Woods' swing and Bubba Watson's swing. So Tiger has over-engineered his swing and almost lost that natural innate ability he had to connect with the ball. Bubba's swing is not pretty, but he can win a Masters too. So is it a beautiful swing or just getting it done? But both A. Golf was what they were meant to do. A B golfer will take golf lessons every single day, 8 hours a day for the next 3 years. They will not make it on tour. They will take your money on Sunday. They will become a scratch golfer, but they will never make it to tour. That's the difference between an A and a B. Bs are very important. There's lots of Bs that are very good golfers and have a good time, et cetera, but they're just not going to make it on tour. And so you have to think about moving that middle is what this next section is going to be about, right? Really making sure you're changing the conversation for those that you are willing to learn and train and change, and marketing has a much better time trying to engage with than the A's. I don't want you to define A, B, C, D, or ABCs when you go back to the office. Don't go, Bob, he's an A, and Sally, she's a B. Don't do that. Just keep in your mind that you also don't want to train everyone to be A's. You don't want to only hire A's. You need the mix, okay? So a customer sales-driven organization will look at customer journey from where they enter the sales cycle. Where they enter the sales cycle. So when they make that first touch to you, that's what you need to identify. Where and how did they enter? Not at what percentage was closed, not what it needs to be, where are they in that journey? So this is what I hear from sales leaders today. Cross-industry. Last week I was in Sydney. A month before that I was in London. Given this presentation, this section a number of times, and all of them are saying the same thing to me. Listen, our outbound leads are drying up. Our inbound leads are increasing. Good job from a marketing perspective. But the deal rates are decreasing, and I have a really unpredictable pipeline. Well, I just told you why, right? Because what happens is, she's my customer, he's my sales manager. I'm the sales rep. She enters the buyer journey, picks up the phone and calls me. My sales cycle begins. Her buyer journey's been going on for some period of time, but my sales cycle begins. Through our conversation, I realize she's at 60% through the sales cycle, my sales cycle. She's 60%. He's my manager, pipeline meeting on Friday. At what percentage do you think I'm going to put in my pipeline of probability to close? You're not in sales. 40. Anybody else? How much? He is correct. If it were me, I would put 15%. Now, why is that? I'm managing management. I'm managing management. Because if I put it at 60%, what happens? How do we close this deal? Oh my God, can we close it right now? Like, what do we have to do? Let's call it. You're like, whoa, hold on a second. Like, it's the first call. Because they might go 30, 20, 40, 10, 80, close. And so the problem with the unpredictability of the pipeline is because we're trying to manage customers' journey through our sales cycle process. And those two things disconnect. The funnel vision of here's what buyers do in our internally driven sales cycle. This is what they do. This is what we want them to do. Great, I'm glad that's what you want them to do, but customers are showing every single day they don't care what you want them to do, they're going to do what they want to do. And so this disconnect between what sales is trying to drive the customer to do versus what the buyer actually wants to do is where the prospects are getting very frustrated. You're eroding trust, you're driving the wrong behaviors in your sales force, you're setting your sales force up for failure because I'm going to manage management and I'll never put a deal at 60%. Not going to happen. Unless you let me take it to 30 and to 20 and back up to 80. That's a cultural change, but today that's not really the temperature because then they feel, well, Tiffany, we can't let pipelines go from 60 to 30 to 20 to 80 because we won't have any predictability in our pipeline. I go, okay, well, let's run through that for just a second. I'm telling you it's 15% when it's really 60%, and you think that's predictable? They're like, oh, I guess not. And so the problem is you now have to build a whole nother level of ability to know that when it goes down, what are the things from a marketing perspective we can do to keep it moving forward. So here's where the power shift happened. At the top of this line, you can see that in the old days of me selling, from 1896 to 1995-ish, this is what was happening, is during the traditional sales cycle, the research, the identification of a vendor or a provider was really driven by us cold calling 100 calls a day. 100 calls, hi, my name is, hi, my name is, hi, my name is, hi, all day. Hi, my name is. That was that. I'm reaching out. I want to teach you about what I do, et cetera. I was in control of the information, the data transfer, the case studies, the references, the pricing. I was in control as a seller. And as it went down, the only time the customer started to get more control is when it was negotiation time. But I really held the control in the sales cycle. Now what's happening is, you can see in the yellow bar at the bottom, is that has flipped where the customer has more control than the seller in the research and identification phase. Remember, I used to control what they knew about my brand, who my clients were, what case studies were out there, who my references were. Now they're getting references before they ever reach out and talk to me. And by the time it gets to qualify and demonstrate, they're still in control because they may say, you know what, I've actually already done a demo online. I've been trying your service for 30 days. So why are you going to stand in front of me and demo it? And if your sales reps make that mistake, I'll tell you what happens. You walk into a customer site because you set a meeting, and you go in and go, let me demonstrate your product. And they go, really? I've been using it for 30 days. And your sales rep looks like an idiot. And why is that? Because he didn't know that they were using it for 30 days. Now, whose fault is that? Whose fault is it that the sales rep, at the moment of truth in front of the customer, did not know the customer was using the product for 30 days? So the digital breadcrumb is going to have to tell them. So marketing is going to have to be smarter, and I actually believe marketing knows the information. The disconnect happens, marketing knows it and doesn't tell sales. Or marketing tells sales, and what sales says is, God, all the data marketing gives is just crap. It's a waste of time, their PowerPoints suck, it doesn't add any value. That conversation happens, and so the sales rep doesn't pay attention because there's no trust between the information that marketing is going to give me will actually make my job easier. But the moment I get burned once on that, trust me, I wouldn't do it again. I would not walk into a customer without knowing, have they been demoing, have they, but that's the information. So lead scoring, how many of you do lead scoring? How many of you actually then hand a lead with a score to a sales rep attached to a play? Meaning, you basically tell me what to do with that lead. With that score, you tell me what to do. How many of you do lead scoring? And then how many of you then back it up with a play to the seller to say, here's the score, here's the lead, here's what you need to do. So all of you who do lead scoring without a play, why are you scoring the leads? Because all the leads you've just given me are equal. Because you're telling me to do the same thing with every lead. You got a sales rep force of 10 people, you hand 10 leads over. To me, one's an A lead, a B lead, a C lead, a D lead, let's just say. As an individual, I respond to an A, a B, a C, and a D in my own way. And then Bob over here, he responds to an A, a B, a C, and a D lead in his own way. So if you don't put predictability behind A, B, C, and D, what value is lead scoring? So here's where sales and marketing, we have been faking it for a long time. In many industries, it is like oil and water. This is where sales and marketing can have the greatest impact. If you're going to score leads, give me a play. Tiffany, with an A lead, here are the 3 things, the next 3 sets of content you're going to do. This is what you're going to do. This is what we expect to happen from that content. If that doesn't happen, let us know so we adjust the next time an A lead comes to you. This is what we do. We get much smarter about A leads, and now you say, how do we get more A leads? Lead scoring for lead scoring is so marketing can say, see, my ROI, my lead quality's gone up. My volume's gone down, but my lead quality's gone up. Look, I'm giving way more leads to sales. I don't know what they're doing with them, but way more leads to sales. You have to think about the fact that if you don't make sales smart in front of a customer, it doesn't matter what you've done up until that point. Because the sales rep will take the brunt of that sales call. And customers are actually telling us that the least valuable interaction during their buyer journey is with sales. And this is why. You've set me up to open up a demo in front of a customer, marketing gave me the lead, I showed up, and he'd been using it for 30 days. I'm an idiot. And there's no way for me to recover from that unless I have a really strong relationship with the buyer. So we started looking across the landscape and saying, well, how do I get to that, being smarter between sales and marketing and having smarter sales forces? We looked at relationship and the rules of the relationship of the customer, the rules of how do they buy, is it team buying, et cetera. And then the readiness of the organization, and I'm going to double click into readiness of the organization. So readiness of the organization is, I am a buyer trying to find something, and I have a few scenarios to choose from. I'm a buyer who's ready to buy. I know what I want, I'm ready to buy. What's the role of sales in that scenario? I know what I want, I'm ready to buy. Close them. Don't go, wait a minute, is this the right thing? I have to take you through my sales cycle. I was trained to challenge you against what I think you want. Shut up, take the order, move on. But we interrupt. I know what I want, I'm ready to buy. Let them buy. I mean, unless it's completely flat out wrong. Once again, forget the outliers. There's 100 reasons why that doesn't work, and it will paralyze you to do it for the mass middle that you can actually have impact on. The next one is, I know what I want, I'm ready to buy, but I'm going to shop. I'm going to shop on price. Can I get it cheaper at Best Buy or Staples? Can I get it cheaper at Amazon or Walmart? Can I get, I'm going to shop. I might shop on features. I might shop on consumption models now. Is it an on-prem product? Is it in the cloud? I might want to see the two. And the last might be service. I want 24/7 service. You only have 5x8. So I know what I want. I'm ready to buy, but I need to shop. Now what's the activity for marketing and sales? Making sure that the shopping experience is easy, frictionless. They get the information they're looking for at the right time in the content. Now, make no mistake. This sounds great on a PowerPoint. Executing this and landing it in the field is not easy. But if we start thinking this way about the buyer is coming in with a certain set of expectations, we can be smarter on that, give me a play. By the way, would you put an A complex seller, $300,000 a year, hard-charging hunter on either of these two categories? We do it every day. Upsell, cross-sell into the base. I know what I want, I'm ready to buy. Let's relationship sell the heck out of this. Let's make sure we train them to death. And the customer's going, I just don't need all that complexity. Like, I know what I want, I'm ready to buy. The next one is, I'm unaware. I know I have a business problem. I don't know I have a business problem, sorry. I don't know I have a business problem, so I'm not looking. I don't know my refrigerator is about to die. I don't know that I'm in the banking industry and my competitors are able to do loan applications in 2 hours and it's taking me 4 days. I don't know that patient hospital care is being handled this way in Johns Hopkins. I don't know I have a problem, so I'm not looking. That's a high challenger. Cold calling, identifying a pain, education. Could be a longer sales cycle, could be a commodity, could be complex. I'm not worried about the product, I'm more worried about its high cost and big time investment with a high risk of a no buy. In the first two, very low risk for no buy, they just might not buy with you, but they will buy. In this case, they just might not buy at all. In the next one is, I'm aware I have a problem, but I don't know how to solve it. So I'm unaware, don't know I have a problem, not looking. I'm aware I have a problem, don't know how to solve it. Now, this is where you would allocate those high-end resources, but know that the sales cycle might be longer. The pipeline is more lumpy. It's difficult to find them and identify them. This is where that content marketing, external marketing becomes huge. Individual or buying groups. The team selling and team buying is critical. CEB just came out with a new book this week, The Challenger Customer, which takes challenger selling, and now it's the challenger customer of saying now it's mostly from a team buy perspective. And this is a big dynamic when it's unaware, aware, because as an individual seller, we used to only sell to one person. Now we got to sell to 4 or 5 people, which means you can't have one message with one story, with one tone, with one angle to one buyer. Won't work. So here's the holy grail. We've moved from descriptive analytics and information, right, where most sales organizations are, and the nirvana for me, if I were still selling, would be, I want you to lead score for me, and I also want you to give me the plays. And from the plays, I want you to, we then can learn, how do we make that happen? How do we get more A's? How do we close more of these? How do we create more A situations? How do we allocate the right resources against it? And I can improve win rates by doing this. Data for data's sake is fantastic to prove marketing ROI. But if it doesn't help sales be smarter in the field, in front of the customer, to improve brand, improve advocacy, and get them to be loyal to you, then it's just really a waste of time, energy, and money. It has to be at that moment of truth. So my recommendations from a marketing perspective, I had to take a shot because, if I had an opportunity with this many marketers, I wasn't going to let it go. So here it is. Provide lead scoring. No shock there. Actionable plays. For those of you who watch football sports, like you playing a West Coast offense, you're going to come in with much more of a pass game. It's a running offense, you're going to come to them with a different defense. Think the same way that you would from a sports perspective of how would you play different competitors, and those are the different customers. You don't play every different competitor the same way. There's strengths and weaknesses in each. Don't just provide data into the CRM, right? Analyze it, adjust it in real time. Make me successful in front of the customer. Define what content moves them forward. What works to get them from going from 60 to 70, not 60 to 40? You'll start to get smarter. Remember, solve for the middle. Solve for the middle, not the outliers. Hone in on that limited segment. Pilot and test. Do not do what I'm saying to your entire sales force Monday morning. Oh my God, I heard this thing. This is what we're doing. Grab like 1 or 2 salespeople, grab 1 marketing person, build some plays, pilot and test it, become more predictable and prescriptive and surgical about what you need to do in sales enablement. And last, and if any of you saw me tweet this morning, it was on purpose. It was, so I'll ask the question. I'm totally leading you into this. So marketers, again, raise your hand. Okay, how many you marketers went on a sales call in the last 30 days? Excellent. How many of you didn't go on a sales call in the last 30 days? Okay, for those of you who didn't go on a sales call, here's my advice to you. Go on a sales call and don't say you're a marketer. I want you to say you're a new sales hire, because the conversation is very different when you go on sales calls and you tell them you're a marketer. That's cheating. You got to be a new hire sales guy and listen to the crap that we have to hear. When you're in the room, oh yeah, that's great, everything's great, you know. When you're not in there, and then we're like, that's not what he said to me yesterday, right? And you're like, yeah, whatever, sales, marketing's like, you guys are both doing this. So I need marketing to go and act like you're a new hire sales and experience what it's like to get kicked out of an account because you gave a demo to somebody who was using the product for 30 days. Then you've experienced the love of being on the other side of the table when a customer thinks that what you're doing from a marketing perspective is just not working. So now the question becomes, what do? Do you train who you have from a selling perspective? Do you fire who you have and then hire and retrain? Unfortunately, 2/3 of your sellers are not going to make this transition to being smarter sellers. They're just very good at what they do. They may never make this transition. The advice there is fire your sales force, not all at the same time. Please do not tweet. Tiffany said, fire your entire sales force. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying instead of making investments of, you know what, I really like Larry, he's a good guy, he's been with me forever. I'm going to train him for 12 or 18 months and he never crosses the chasm on that. Problem is you could have gotten rid of him and rehired and he would have been far more effective faster. So we have to think about what's the right way. So not all sales resources will make the transition. Now here's what happens. You have a sales force who's not performing. That never happens, but because we always perform. But you have a sales force who's not performing. So the first thing you do, this is difficult to read, so I'll tell you the highlights. The top 3 things when a sales force isn't performing is you improve sales performance through better training. You improve it through better recruitment. You improve it through better systems and technologies. Do any of those 3 things solve what we were just talking about? No. New recruitment, new training, new systems is not going to fix. Maybe new systems if you're using the data as I described. Training them doesn't change the fact that if you're going to re-metric them and performance them on the old school of call 100, this is the process, the funnel vision of this is the way it goes through the selling process, when we've just said the buyer is very flexible and fluid and continuous, and they've already done a lot of things, so we've just got to get better there. So sales organizations in the future, I think it revolves around these things. Starts with the customer, making sure you have the right coverage models against those customers that you have. I was with a customer the other day who said, I have 16,000 named accounts and 600 sales reps. How many of you think that math works? I went to a state school. Doesn't even work for me. Doesn't work for me. 600 sales reps against 16,000 accounts, not on a good day. Not going to happen. So make sure you have the right coverage. Capacity, right salespeople allocated to the right places, the coverage model there, the connection between the customer and the brand, and then last, collaboration, absolutely between sales and marketing. If you do nothing else out of my session today, for all of you guys doing lead scoring, please build some plays around the leads. Help your sellers be more effective. Remember the A's, leave them alone for a second. Let's focus on the B's, move the middle, 5%, you'll be a hero. So the last set of recommendations is that allocating the right resources against the right customers. As I said, I'm a customer, I know what I want, I'm ready to buy. Do not put your most powerful sellers against those guys. It should be automated online as much as you can do without a human touch, low cost. Sales and marketing organizations must build tighter alignment. I know I joke about the sort of love and hate between sales and marketing, but where it really shows itself is even if the executives and you guys in the room have a good relationship with your peers, in the field, sales reps don't traditionally trust what the marketing organization is giving them is going to help them be better at their job. And that's where it matters. Because you guys have lunch and play golf and enjoy each other's company is one thing, but at the field level, that's just not what they're experiencing. And last is reimagining the sales metrics to let that seller go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth without firing them because they go back and forth, okay? So with that, I'm gonna wrap it up. I think we might have time, I went a little long, but I think we've got time for one question. No questions, yeah, we've got time for one question. But for those of you leaving, thank you guys very much for showing up and I appreciate it. Anybody have a question? I've scared you all to death. Look, you're running. Out. Anyway, all right, thank you guys. Oh, one question, yeah. So the question was, am I seeing that apply to startups? So for those of you who are startups, don't make these mistakes early, because if you get too big, fixing them gets more difficult. So if you do it right early, you don't have to adjust. The problem with the larger sales organizations is they have to hit revenue numbers, and then I'm in there telling them they need to completely reimagine, and you can't back up. So start it right first, out of the gate. With one sales rep, it gets smarter, and then grow from there. All right, great. Thank you, guys.